At the end of the middle of the season, I did.
No, that was the contest last year.
And then the president to the court. And then that's the day before the supposed to head out.
Here.
I bought a plane deal on Saturday, just like that first one.
Oh, okay.
But there's no instructions, no nothing, no like battery. You go online and everybody has a different idea. I think it says one. I'm going to ask him what battery he's using in that one. That's my only one. So I've got all 4-cell bigger ones and I need some smaller.
You tipped him when they did.
At the rally over there, I always
It's electric, I don't know
the same guys always win. Greg, you got
Flush little drone and
Oh, really?
little paper cup, toy paper cup.
So let me see that number.
My son-in-law bought me a drone
Pull
for
a ticket and
Christmas.
say like
Flying as far as-
362,
Well, it's just
Yeah,
$100
mine's
drone.
mine's got a camera on the bottom.
We're in the middle of the month?
Got full.
I'm sorry to say that's
It's a lot different flying one of these. Flying this for years.
And then I have to go home.
Go on, win.
It's a butterfly, so he.
Looks like I ran short, but maybe you guys can
Thank
get there. Well, let's go ahead and kick things off. This is basically kind of a continuation of what we talked about at last Thursday's meeting. And we're talking about the introduction to aerobatic maneuvers. And we're going to look at a couple of maneuvers today. But before we got started, I just kind of wanted to pass this out. This is what's called the Arresti diagram for the IMAC basic class category. And we'll talk a little bit about how to read an Arresti diagram, because the two things we're going to talk about today, and if I can grab one of those, do I have any extras? Here's one. Actually, I think I've got two more here. So.
Oh, good. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
The ones we're going to really look at today are number 4,
Here's another one.
which is the loop. So that's a representation of what a loop looks like in the Arresti diagrams. And number 3 is what we call the half reverse Cuban. We talked about the reverse Cuban in the class on Thursday. We're going to fly the half reverse Cuban today. The reason being is that this is kind of the first introduction to being inverted in a maneuver. And it's much more comfortable if you're inverted going uphill, because you have a lot more time to fix things if it goes wrong, versus going a regular Cuban coming down, being inverted going downhill, where things speed up substantially. So we're going to take a look at flying the half reverse Cuban today, when we're going uphill, making the rotation, making our curve. When we talk about flying aerobatic maneuvers, as I mentioned before, we always talk about entering a maneuver on a straight line and exiting a maneuver on a straight line, whether we're inverted or upright, or whether we're high or whether we're low. And if you look at some of the diagrams here, you see some maneuvers where there's a right angle, and it's really not possible to fly that right angle. What that basically means is that we want to enter into that maneuver with a smooth curve. So anytime you see a vertical line, we're going to fly into that maneuver with a smooth curve. We're going to exit that maneuver with a smooth curve. When we come down to the ground, we're going to exit that maneuver with a smooth curve. We're not going to try to make that as sharp as possible, make it look like a right angle. We want to be able to exit that with as smooth as possible radius. And again, we're flying lines and curves, and that's the only thing we fly in maneuvers is lines and curves, and we put in elements along the way. So any curve that we fly, we want to make that nice and smooth. We want to start a radius and keep that radius going the same direction. And anybody who wants to take a look at that in more detail, we can go over that with you individually and talk about what some of those maneuvers mean and how you read them. But as we start flying some of these maneuvers, very quickly you'll understand about what that Arresti diagram is. It's really pretty simple. It gets a little more complicated as you go up into classes, because they start throwing in more and more type of maneuvers. But for right now, that's pretty much the basic maneuver. As we talked about, that loop exists in the basic class, the sportsman class, the intermediate class, the unlimited class, and the invitational class that goes beyond that, where they actually pay you money to win. Most of them, they just give you a cardboard trophy. But there is an invitational class where sponsors put together money and people can compete for prizes. So all those are the same. Everybody flies that particular maneuver. You just put more stuff in it depending upon the class that you're in. We're going to start out this morning really talking about establishing that foundation. And again, a foundation to every maneuver is a straight line. So what we're trying to accomplish is to be able to fly that straight line predictably. And what that really means is, depending upon your plane, you want to pick an altitude that's comfortable and a distance away from you is comfortable, and try to repeat that every time when you start into a maneuver. The idea being is that you're going to get a visual image of that plane, what that plane looks like, what that wing looks like, how much of that inbound wing you see when you're actually flying straight and level. So you kind of imprint that picture in your mind about, there's my plane, it looks like it's supposed to, I know I'm flying straight and level. So when I pull into maneuver, we're going to pull in straight and level. And John Bentley's going to demonstrate for us what that looks like when you do it right and when you do it wrong, and what happens to your plane if you're not straight and level when you're coming into a particular maneuver. Trimming your plane, extremely important at all levels. Most of you probably know Bill Adams. He's an advanced pilot here, flies the top class in the IMAC competition. And when he's working with someone and a student, he first asks him, is your plane trimmed? And whether it's a beginning student or an advanced student, he'll take his plane, he'll fly it across a level line. And probably 90% of the time, that student's plane is not trimmed, regardless of what flight classification they're in. They might be an advanced pilot thinking, okay, my flight's all trimmed out, I'm ready to go. And if you just fly that across the box, take your hands off the controls, the plane should fly by itself, nice, flat and level, straight across the box. 90% of the time, when he has a student, takes his hands off the controls, it's going to climb, it's going to fall, it's going to turn, it's going to roll, something's going to happen. So what the student is doing all the time, he thinks he's flying straight and level, but unknowingly he's fighting the sticks, trying to make it look straight and level. So you're putting in corrections, even though you may not realize it, but those thumbs are busy trying to make that plane like it's straight and level. You take the thumbs off, funny things happen. It's not straight and level anymore. So again, John's going to show us some of that as we fly some of those demonstrations. John, pretty much anytime you're ready, if you want to take your plane in the air, we'll show what's going on, and John can tell you what he's doing. He's going to do some stuff right, he's going to do some stuff wrong, and then we're going to kind of see the difference as to what happens when he's looking at his plane, how it's trimmed, and some of the maneuvers. So he's going to fly through the loops and fly through that half reverse Cuban 8. First of all, we're going to set up the baseline. He's going to show you what a plane looks like when it's out of trim, kind of how to bring it back into trim. And again, if the plane's a trim, I should be able to fly it across the box, turn around with my hands on my hip, and the plane should fly right behind me, straight and level, all the way across. And hopefully I'll turn around soon enough before it goes over to Ironwood Road or someplace like that. But we'll pull that back in and make sure that it's straight. You have to establish that baseline. You got to be able to have a trim plane and be able to fly a nice straight and level pattern, because again, every maneuver starts on a straight line, every maneuver ends on a straight line. And all the things we talked about on Thursday night about learning how to fly some of the maneuvers and fly them with confidence really boils down to that one thing we talked about, being able to save your plane. Because if you get in some orientations that seem unusual, you're not really in control. If you've gone through some of these maneuvers, you have the feeling of what you're doing, what happens when I'm inverted, what happens if I'm screwing down to the earth, and you have the confidence in perhaps, okay, I can make a correction without panicking. Because typically what happens when most people get disoriented in a plane, the first thing that happens, you go full throttle. Full throttle, try to pull out. And that's probably the worst thing that can happen, because all you do is accelerate your plunge towards the earth, build up a little velocity, so when you crash, you got a big one. So one of the things is having confidence in the plane, having confidence in being able to do these maneuvers, especially being confident when you get inverted, because that's the one thing that most people are most uncomfortable with. And these maneuvers allow you to get inverted in a controlled fashion, so you know what it feels like and how your plane reacts to what controls that you throw in when you're inverted. So, John, how do you want to do this? Why don't you kind of talk to them as you fly?
Or? Yeah, let's do that. If
you want to come out to the station, does that make it easier?
It doesn't make a difference. You can go from here if you want.
Okay.
I don't know if that's breaking any rules for the club or not.
We're okay today.
We can do it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and we'll just do some basic things. Believe it or not, the biggest thing in aerobatic flying when you look at is you have to take off and you have to land. Right? Somewhere it has to end and somewhere it has to start. And in pattern, you get judged on that. You get judged on a score from 0 to 10 for your takeoff and landing. And the takeoff needs to be wheels up straight in front of you, and the landing needs to be wheels touch down straight in front of you. Now, practice that sometime and see what happens. How many touch and goes can you do that you can drill that landing gear right in the middle, and take off right in the middle? It's harder to do than you might ever think. Straight lines are the key to what we do here. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to go up here and we'll fly some straight lines, and I'll fly some straight lines that aren't straight. And I want you to see what the difference is on those, and then what happens as the result when you go to turn around. It's going to make some big differences with you to do that. So let's go do that. Long ways away from the flight station. Right?
You can go up, we could do it.
No, that's all right. We're good. So I missed the takeoff by a little bit because I didn't go down far enough. And Sid was talking about the whole concept of making sure the airplane is flying straight. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to let go of the transmitter for a while. And if you look at the airplane's just flying along, it's doing its own thing, right? Everything's happy, nothing's happening. The transmitter's, we're not doing anything. So we're going to come back, and I'm going to show you some ideas of level, straight flight. And an altitude that we want to look at. So as we look at an altitude, we need a base altitude that's going to be consistent. And that base altitude is going to be something that will be comfortable for us if we do a maneuver. It's not sinking, it's not climbing, the airplane's just flying a nice straight line. Now if I want to turn around and the wings are level, I simply have to pull the nose up and do a half a roll, and I can come back on the same line. Now, the wind's blowing upstairs, believe it or not. And if you saw that airplane track off due to the wind, that's exactly what happened.